This is my response to the article, A Classroom Demonstration of Self-Monitoring Reactivity and Inter-Observer Agreement. The three main concepts addressed by this article were self-monitoring, reactivity, and inter-observer agreement. The context of this article seemed to be primarily focused on teaching students in higher education about these psychological and experimental concepts, and this article outlines a procedure for a lecture and hands-on experiment to teach students the relationship between these. This college lecture environment does not relate directly to my classroom. However, the article did a very good job of explaining the effects and relationships between self-monitoring, reactivity, and inter-observer agreement. For my post, I would like to describe how I see these fitting in a special education environment, how they have been used in my classroom, and how they might shape my decisions in future behavioral modification techniques. In my classroom, we always have the expected behaviors displayed on their desk. In order for the students to understand their behaviors or allow them to take ownership of their behaviors, I always have them reflect on how they did during the period. For example, did you have your hands to yourself? Did you have a quiet mouth? Depending on the student's functionality, there may be more prompting involved, but ideally each student will be able to independently reflect on an academic task and a period of learning. They would be able to fill out a chart or write what they did during the period and what they could do better next time. This provides the students with a sense of ownership as well as a chance to reflect on what they can do next time. I often have found that once a student buys into the process of self-reflection, it leads to increased instances of appropriate behavior, which brings me to the article's next concept, reactivity. In the article, Carr, Taylor, and Austin describe reactivity as a process of a behavioral change on the part of the client due to them being observed. In many instances of data collection, this would be considered a negative aspect of the observation. It might cause unnatural behavior or uncharacteristic data to be logged and documented. However, in the case of self-monitoring as a way to increase appropriate behavior, this reactivity can actually be a good thing. A student knows that at the end of an academic period where they will have to assess their own behavior. In my experience, this circumstance makes the student more aware of their behavior in the moment and improves the frequency of their appropriate behaviors. Again, this ties into the concept of ownership. Finally, inter-observer agreement, in my opinion, relates less to practical everyday solutions, but it does remind us that whenever behaviors are being documented, they must be clearly and objectively defined and made measurable. In cases of a low percentage of inter-observer agreement, less than 80%, the article stated that it often owed to a lack of definition prior to an observation session. In the population of students with cognitive disabilities that I usually work with truly independent self-monitoring is not always completely feasible. In those cases, teachers and paraprofessionals can modify the self-monitoring technique based on the student need. Ideally, it would become a part of a student's routine to end each class period by independently completing a checklist or evaluation tool based on what went well and what could have gone better.